Hi, welcome back to L Squared Crafts. I'm Leslie, and I'm going to take you on a tour of Cricut Design Space. If you have watched some of my other videos, you know that I used to make a lot of cheer bows, lots and lots of bows. I will post a link right here to how you can make your own cheer bows and a lot of information on that. Today is not going to be how to make a cheer bow. However, I'm going to walk you through some of the basics on how to use Cricut Design Space. It's a tool that's been out for a long time, and there are a lot of great videos on it, but I was using it again recently after having sort of tucked it away while I was learning to sew, and I remembered how much I love it and how easy it is to make something that looks really great and is personal. All right, we're going to jump right in, and when you open a new project, you're going to see all your elements on the left. Anything you add to your canvas, you'll see in layers on the right. And we're just going to add some text on this. I'm going to do HW for my kids' school team. Initially, when you add text, it defaults to this font, but you can change it to whatever you want. And I am going to change this to a font that I know I like, but for some reason couldn't remember what it was called when I went in here. This tool is pretty neat because you get to see a preview of what the font's going to look like. So if you're looking for a specific letter, like I'm looking for an H, so I can see what an H is going to look like before I choose that font. Now that I've chosen the font, I can look at what the properties of it are over here on the right. You see it has two layers that come with that font. Currently, we are only seeing one of them though. We're only seeing the blue. And I want to change that to white because that's the color that I want. All right, I like that. But now I want to see the other layer. And you just have to toggle that little eyeball. See, it had a strike line through it at first, and you just turn that strike off, and now you can see it. And we can change the color of that too. So now we're going to see both layers of that H. Just like we did with the H, I'm going to add a W, the other part of their school. You'll notice that it no longer defaults. It will use whatever font you last used. So now I don't have to search again for whatever it was. And I can change the colors and see the layers just like we did before. So right now you have two separate letters, and you can move them independently and arrange them however you would like. And once you do that, you can group them together. You just select both of them and then click on Group. Now they move as one unit together, and you can see the size of how big they are together. You can resize them together, and you can see that right now, while that little lock is on, when I resize them, they move proportionally. But you can unlock that and move them, make them skinnier or fatter or however you'd like. And then when you get it the way you'd like it, you can lock it again so that it will move proportionally like that. I have added a rectangle to sort of simulate what it's going to look like on a bow, but that is not the purpose of this video, so I'm going to get rid of that. So you see I have this all together as a group so that I can move it around and resize it. So in order to get rid of that rectangle, I have to ungroup it. So all you do is highlight it and then click on Ungroup. It doesn't resize anything, it doesn't move anything, but now the pieces are individual again. And all we have to do is click on that hash mark to hide the rectangle. So now we have our two letters. They are individual letters. They're not grouped together at all, but we want to get them to be the size that we want them when we cut it. So I'm going to select both of them together, and make them the size that I want them to be. I'm going to put them on a 1.5 inch ribbon, so I need to make them smaller than that so they'll fit. There's a couple of things that I want to do to them before I start cutting on vinyl. I'm going to put these on heat transfer vinyl, so I want to manipulate the layers a little bit before I do that. It's going to be easier to cut this out and weed it and everything else if the black layer underneath is all one piece. So to do that, I'm going to weld it together. Since I'm just concerned with this black under layer, I'm going to go ahead and hide the H and the W, the white and the red. So all I see is the black. Next, I want to get a better look at the black layer. I want to make sure that those two letters that are individual letters right now are actually touching right here in the center, so that when I weld them, they'll be stuck together. Next, I'm just going to select both of those letters and hit the weld button down below, the bottom right. And you'll see up here in the layers, it now is called a weld result. It's no longer a text entity, now it's just a cut image. So I welded that image together, and I'm realizing by looking at my layers on the right hand side that the H and the W got welded in there too. So now I need to undo it in order to get those letters back. See, now I have them, they're in the text form again, it's unwelded. Now that I have those letters back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the entire thing and then weld the black and take the white and red out separately. So here I am selecting the entire thing, and I'm grouping it together to be a group. I duplicated the group. Now I have one to weld and one to work with. So I'm taking out, hiding the H and the W on the part I want to weld. I'm going to weld that together. All right, now I have a welded part, and I still have a whole grouping with all of it together, but they're individual letters. They're not welded together, right? So I just want to make sure everything stayed the same size, and it did. And I'm going to arrange it so the colors are on the top so I can see them. Now I'm ready to cut this, but I got to think about what I'm going to make with it. As I said, I'm using heat transfer vinyl, which means that when I cut this, I need to cut it as a mirror image so that when I iron it on, it will be readable. If you were going to make this out of paper, or you're going to do a decal or something like that where you're cutting it, it doesn't need to be mirrored, then you don't need to do this step. You don't need to think about this. But for me, I need to flip my letters around. And I also, on the duplicate H and W, I don't need to see that background. I don't want to cut the black background on that because I've already got my welded black background that they're going to be on. So I can remove that from cutting. Design Space is awesome because when you select what material you're cutting, it will remind you to mirror your image if you choose an iron-on. But I always am oblivious to that step, and so I do it in my design phase on this page. But you don't have to. That's just how I do it. So to mirror the image, you just select what you want to mirror and then hit that flip button, flip horizontal, and that will mirror it. Now this font happens to be very symmetric, so the H and the W don't look like they're flipping because they're the same coming and going. But it is mirroring it, and I do it even though it doesn't make a difference. One last thing to think about with iron-on vinyl is, are you using glitter? Because if you're using glitter, you cannot iron glitter on top of glitter. So in the case of glitter, you will want to slice out your image so that it's more of an inlay than a layer on top of layer. So what I'm going to do, you can only slice two things at a time. So I'm going to do the H and the welded image, and then I'll do the W and the welded image. And you'll see how you do that. You place the H where you want it to go. And I don't know why I'm putting the W too, because I know I can't do it. But that would be the placement that I'd want it to be. Even though it's backwards right now, we can still tell what we're doing. So now I'm going to select the H, and I'm going to select the welded image. Now, the way I have it right now, it's a little bit hard to grab just the welded image, so I'm going to go up to those layers and grab them from there. So the way you do that is you go up to the layers, you select that row, and then you hold down your Shift key and you select the second part that you want to use. So now you have two of those selected together, and go down to the bottom and hit slice. And now you'll see what I have is an H that I originally had. I have the image that I had with the H cut out of it, and I have a black cut out H, which I don't need, so I'm going to throw that out. For whatever reason, when you do the slice, it moves everything else below that, so now I have to move that W, I have to arrange it to the front. But now that I've done that, you're going to place that where you want it. And we're going to slice the W out now. So you got to select the W, hold the Shift key, and then the welded image, and now it's a sliced image. You have just those two things, and then slice, and you'll have your red W, you'll have your black W that we don't need, we're going to cut out, or just delete, and you have your sliced image. And that is how I'm going to leave it, so that I can cut it. And when I put it on the heat press, I'm going to layer it on like this, and everything will touch the ribbon now. I don't have any vinyl on top of vinyl. Now all you have to do is hit the Make It button and follow those instructions. And this is the finished product. I hope you enjoyed learning about Cricut Design Space, and maybe you have a Cricut maker or you're going to get one. And I would love to answer any questions that I can. Again, you should know I am not an expert on anything, as you know if you've watched anything I've produced, but I do like to tinker. So I will give you my best advice, and I might be able to point you in the direction of some good resources too if you have any questions. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time at L Squared Crafts.